Welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host, Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Scott Kelly of Black Dog Venture Partners. Scott, welcome on the show.
Thanks, Nitin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. So in a minute, tell us who's Scott.
Well, me, I'm originally from New York, father of two, been in the deal business for about 30 years, started on the New York Stock Exchange, spent several years as an investment banker, had my own incubator and took 4 of my companies public. And now I operate Black Dog Venture Partners and teach entrepreneurship at Grand Canyon University.
And that's quite a roster of achievements, and looking forward to getting to learn a little more about you. Tell us, what is Black Dog?
Right. Well, Black Dog is for all intents and purposes an accelerator. We work with early stage startups to help them fund their company, grow and scale their business through our network of business professionals, business partnerships, and then eventually we help them exit their business.
Mm-hmm. And if you were to give us a sense for the economic impact of Black Dog on the U.S. economy, could you give us a sense, what those numbers look like?
Well, I know, myself individually, I've been involved in about $4 billion worth of capital raising. Like I said, took several companies public of my own and many more after that, and represented thousands of people being employed over the last 30 years.
Thank you for what you do. You've been a great impact, a positive impact on this economy. Tell us what led to the creation of Black Dog.
Well, after I've always been a serial entrepreneur at heart, and I tell people, quite frankly, I'm a lousy employee, so that's why I work for myself. But Black Dog quite frankly, it was the third company I started on my own, and it's the one I continue to work with today. And the real goal was, because I was on both sides, I was both entrepreneur looking to raise capital and someone investing in entrepreneurs. I had a good perspective on both sides. And that's really what I try to bring to early stage companies.
Scott, there is more than 500,000 startups in the US. And just, from the data we know, more than 90% of them will eventually fail. Is there a certain process that Black Dog puts them through?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that, you have to be able to do what no one else is willing to do. Work the extra hours, make the sacrifice. I tell a lot of people, when you're a startup, you have to work on a ramen budget.
Yes.
Meaning you get ramen and that's it. And I think that's the real differentiator. I think the other thing, there's a big misnomer that raising capital is the virtue or the means of being successful. Yeah. I like to work with companies that, quite frankly, can build a business with no money, but can build a bigger business if they had money. And I think that's really the most important differentiating factors. About
48% of the businesses in the US are women-owned, and yet only 2% of the venture funding goes to women-owned businesses. I want to ask you, as a white male funder or investor, how do you make a positive change on that?
That's a really good question. And I think in all frankness, in this environment, it becomes more about talking about it and more about implementing it.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of initiatives out there to provide equality for people of different race and genders and other walks of life. But the reality is, it comes down to making those hires and actually funding those companies. And I think, it's got to be more than slogans. It's got to be actions, and I've been fortunate that, quite honestly, most of the senior executives at my company have been women, because quite honestly, they provide some asset skills that men just simply don't have.
As you get involved with a lot of these different startups and industries, is there a particular kind of advice you see going around that is just wrong?
Well, I mentioned this before. I think the one piece of advice that every entrepreneur has got to be cautious of is keeping track of who's raising money.
Yes.
Because again, it's much like baseball or any other sport. It's the fraction of a percent to get to that point. And that's the thing that's the problem. I think a lot of the media will write great stories about people raising capital. I would like to see more great stories about people growing a business without raising capital.
on your own personal side, you have been recognized with being on a lot of the lists. You've received several awards. Is there a particular list or award you want to get on next?
That's a good question. I've been fortunate to gain some industry recognition, but I'll be frank with you.
Mhm.
One of the more gratifying awards was when I won the award for being the Junior Achievement Teacher of the Year over 7,000 other instructors. So,
Wow.
I got to work with entrepreneurs that were, 10 to 18 years old. And that was probably, quite frankly, one of the proudest moments. Yeah, and honestly, at this point, I'm not interested in awards or
Mhm.
accolades. I'm more interested in the companies I work with get
Mhm.
those awards and accolades.
You've achieved a lot. You've done a lot of things. You've worked hard to get to where you are, Scott. When you were a child, what was your dream? What did you want to become?
That's interesting. I started out like a lot of young boys and wanted to be a professional athlete. I thought I was going to be a professional football player, and unfortunately, I was too slow and too small to make that happen. And then, quite honestly, I grew up very poor, and I wanted to be a business person and make money. Um, and so the reality is that what drove me to become, the first person that graduated college in my family, and now I've been able to build a pretty decent life for myself and my family.